Good morning, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us. Welcome to the subcommittee. The first agenda item is election of chair. I am happy to be nominated for chair.
I would be happy to nominate you.
Thank you. Councillor Farquhar.
Happy to second.
Thank you, subcommittee. Firstly, the clerk will read out the housekeeping notice regarding how this meeting will be managed.
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council's website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of your nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of this building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume completely down on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Matthews, and Councillor Anne Filer is sitting as reserve in his place on the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. Subcommittee members, Councillor Filer, do you have any declarations?
No.
Councillor Farquhar, any declarations?
None at all.
I confirm I have no declarations of interest. Which moves on to item 4 of the agenda, the protocol for public speaking at hearings. This is included with the agenda sheet for noting. Are there any questions or queries about the protocol for public speaking? Then I believe we can move to item 5. Item 5 is the application to review the premises licence for Hillside Stores, 289 Kinson Road, Bournemouth. I'll now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. I am Councillor Keddy and I am chair of today's subcommittee. Councillor Farquhar.
Councillor George Farquhar and I'm subcommittee member.
Councillor Anne Filer and I'm a subcommittee member.
We are also present are Councillor Judy Richardson as a reserve member, Councillor Patrick Canavan as joining us for training purposes, and Councillor Adrian Chapman-Law also joining us for training purposes. We also have Councillor Bartlett, who's recently appointed to the Licensing Committee, observing for training purposes. Councillors attending for training purposes will take no part in the hearing or in the deliberations. From BCP Council, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, good morning. I'm Sarah Rogers, Principal Licensing Officer.
Good morning, I'm Linda Cole, Legal Advisor to the subcommittee this morning.
Good morning, I'm Sinead O'Callaghan. I'm clerk to the subcommittee this morning, and there we have Christine Tan observing for training purposes from Democratic Services also.
Thank you. And for the applicant?
Good morning, Chair. Gareth Gosling, I'm Police Sergeant with Dorset Police, and I'm joined today by Louise Busfield, Licensing Officer for that area.
Thank you. And for the... Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
That's quite all right. My name's Immigration Officer Smythe. I work for South Central ICE in Portsmouth, and I was officer in charge on the day of the visit to the premises.
Thank you.
I'm Philip Day, solicitor from Lacey's, representing the premises licence holder, who sits next to me. That's Mr. Surjivan Morella Moran. He's also the DPS. Sitting at the back is simply a friend of his who's here to observe and that's Mr. Sunakraj, if I pronounced that correctly.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present for the premises?
No.
Before I run through the procedure, please may I check that everybody who's given notice of their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw a representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. Okay, that's good. I will take this as correct. I will now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing as follows. The licensing officer will present their report. Questions of the licensing officer by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. The premises will be invited to respond. Questions of the premises by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with our legal advisor and clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations. Sergeant Gosling, do you confirm the procedure?
Yes, yeah, absolutely happy with that.
Okay. Louise?
Yes, indeed, Chair.
Okay. In fact, it's probably easier if I ask if there are any objections to the procedure as identified. I will take that as correct.
Sorry, so I don't have an objection to the procedure, but just one little housekeeping matter. You will have seen in the papers that the name and details of the person that's brought this all about have been redacted. Just to make life easier, can I simply suggest that we refer to that person as D throughout the proceedings so that we will know who it is, but without then naming him, if that's okay with everybody.
Let me just take a pass.
And secondly, sir, there is some CCTV footage that's been provided which identifies a number of people. It's my view, which I think is shared by certainly your legal advisor, but I don't know about the police, that it would not be appropriate to show that in public. And so when we get to the point of looking at that CCTV, I will invite you to make the usual ruling that the press and public be excluded simply for that part, but it shouldn't take more than a few minutes to deal with that.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the video being held in closed session? It seems reasonable to me, subcommittee. That seems perfectly reasonable. May I remind all parties speaking not to repeat information which they may have already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair, and there will be no cross-examination of parties. I will now ask the licensing officer to present the report.
Thank you. Dorset Police have submitted an application to review the premises licence under Section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003, as they believe the premises are not upholding the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective. The premises in question are located in Kinston, area of BCP, and is located next door to another off-licence and in the nearby vicinity of a supermarket and garage, both licensed for off sales of alcohol. The review was prompted by a visit from the Home Office Immigration Enforcement on the 7th of November 2024, following information that there was an alleged illegal worker employed at the premises. Under the Licensing Act 2003, the Home Office, on behalf of the Secretary of State, has the authority to enter licensed premises if there is a reasonable suspicion that an offence under the Immigration Acts is being committed in connection with licensable activities. Following their visit undertaken, a number of alleged breaches of the premises licence were notified to the licensing authority. A follow-up visit was made by myself and my colleague Tanya on the 19th of November 2024 by way of follow-up. We witnessed that there were Challenge 25 notices on display, and Part B of the licence summary was on display, but we had to advise to move to a more prominent position within the premises. Concerned about the number and style of vapes and the type of smoking accessories on display, we took photographs and referred these to our colleagues in Trading Standards, who did not highlight any concerns. In response to the review consultation, Trading Standards advised that the premises passed a test purchase in 2022, and as I had had no further relevant intelligence, they would not be in a position to support the review application. Members are reminded that any powers they exercise must be appropriate and proportionate, aimed at promoting the licensing objective of the prevention of crime and disorder, directed at the concerns identified within the application once those concerns have been clearly established during this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Subcommittee, do we have questions for the licensing officer? Councillor Farquhar.
If I may, Chair. You mentioned that you did a follow-up visit on the 19th of November and Trading Standards had a test purchase in 2022. Have there been any other reasons for the licensing authority to visit this premises? And if so, what was the outcome?
No.
And may I ask, how long has the licence been in place?
The licence has been in place since, excuse me, I just have to refer to my report. It's in my report.
23rd of July 2008.
2008.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, so is there any reports from the previous borough and licensing authority going back to 2008 of visits to this particular premises?
We were the legacy authority.
So there's been no visits to this premises since 23rd of July 2008?
We have visited the premises. There were maybe prior to that. Can I get back to you with that? I'll just check the records.
Thank you.
Councillor Filer, do you have any questions for the...
No, thank you, Chairman.
We'll just allow the officer some time to review that question.
Nothing of note.
Thank you. So I'll ask the applicant if they have any questions of the licensing officer.
No questions, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. And the premises, do you have any questions of the licensing officer's report?
If I may, through you, Chair.
You may go.
Firstly, you'll have seen a statement that was served last night from Alwyn, the lottery people. With regards to that, can you just confirm, or not, as the case may be, a couple of things, Mrs. Rogers? It asserts on the second page that they visited on Tuesday the 20th of November, and and you were present, you referred to the 19th of November. What was the correct date, please?
Yeah, when I read that myself, I checked and I've checked. The date was the 19th. I think it's a typo on their part. It was Tuesday, the 19th of November.
One of the things that was highlighted by immigration following their visit and is again referred to at the bottom of the same page of the statement was a skull-shaped vodka bottle, which Mr. Constantis says was empty. Was it empty?
I believe it was. I think. No, it was full of. It was full. Sorry.
It was full. It was an unsealed bottle of vodka.
Yes.
And it was being offered as a prize
Yeah.
for a Christmas draw with profits to go to charity.
Yep.
Anything wrong or illegal with that as far as you're concerned?
No. When we initially arrived and we spotted the raffle as well, through questioning, we established that it was a customer lottery. Therefore, it didn't fall within having to have a licence under the Gambling Act.
Thank you. The next one, reference is made in the statements to a couple of boxes of nitrous oxide canisters. Did you refer that to trading standards?
Not the canisters. I just referred the vapes and the smoking paraphernalia that was there as well, because we don't have that expertise.
Right. As far as these canisters are concerned, and if you can't answer the question, then please say so. Are you satisfied that they were legitimately used in connection with a previous family business that was next door to the premises in terms of food preparation?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
You can't answer that. Okay. Then reference was also made to a dog that was referred to the RSPCA. Do you know what happened with regard to that?
No, but when I visited the premises to put the notices on display, I did see the dog there.
Any concerns?
Not from me.
Has it got anything to do with licensing?
No.
And I just wanted finally to ask you about that. Some 5 months after the event, you went there again in order to put the notices up for the public notification of the review hearing. When you were there, did you see or do or hear anything that gave you any concern whatsoever with regard to any licensing matter?
No, not at all.
In fact, that's been the case ever since my client was there back in 2008 for the first time.
Yes.
And then, sorry, I said finally, there is one more question. Having regard to the license conditions, those date back to when the license was first granted in 2008, although subsequently there were additional mandatory conditions that appear on the printed copy. I have proposed that the opportunity be taken to effectively tidy those up and modernise them, put more detail in the CCTV condition and so on. Does the licensing authority have any observation with regard to the proposals that I've made in terms of amending the licence?
No, in fact, they would be welcome because it would bring better clarity to the licence conditions.
Right, then thank you very much for that, Mrs. Rogers. I'll leave you in peace.
Thank you. If there are no further questions are there any further questions of the licensing officer? Then we will move on to the applicant, Dorset Police, presenting their application.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much. So, as has already been highlighted by Mr. Rogers, this review came about following some work undertaken by our partners in immigration around some intelligence-led information that they had concerning an alleged illegal worker. During that visit, as again has already been highlighted, there were a number of concerns raised regarding Licensing Act issues, and we are grateful that the Licensing Authority have conducted a visit post the immigration visit. And it seems to have largely gone as we would expect, where certain issues have been addressed, because I think it would be a shock to anybody to have an immigration visit, and certainly where things are highlighted to you, that you'd want to put these changes in and make these improvements as quickly as possible, which is really good to see. When we are talking through the issues today, I want to really stress that the Licensing Act concerns that have been highlighted have been brought to your attention simply because we see that they are symptomatic of what we consider to be a non-compliant premises. There are aspects of that have been, of what we've evidenced, that have been refuted, but I would not want the members to become distracted away from what is the most serious matter that we've got here. We do have some CCTV to assist you that have been produced by the licence holder, but that CCTV is not complete, and I think we need to make sure that it's what you're viewing and the snippets that you're viewing, it's very difficult to gain that full context. For example, as around how long that alleged illegal worker was present at the store, but I will highlight some of the issues that we have identified just simply from that footage shortly. We've got the detailed significant statement, the one that was produced from immigration, that highlights the whole detail around the visit, what was said, whatever information, intelligence they had gleaned from that visit. And what it does is it highlights and demonstrates that at the time of that visit, there weren't any customers present at the store. And the only person present was somebody who emerged from the staff-only storeroom at the back. During the conversations that took place and in the interviews that occurred between the immigration officers and that individual and Mr. Murali Mohan, there was an acknowledgement that that individual was working part-time at the premises. As I've already stated, that individual came from the staff room, but also was quite comfortable being behind the counter and went there, as we've been told and has been documented, without being asked to go behind the counter. They chose to go behind the counter themselves. Some doubt has been raised around the potential for a language barrier between the alleged illegal worker and the immigration officers. You'll note from some of the CCTV that we'll see later that there is audio available on one of the cameras that's been offered to us, and that shows a perfectly reasonable conversation taking place between the immigration officer and that alleged illegal worker, with no sort of suggestion that they don't understand what's being asked of them. I want to as well draw your attention. I don't intend to go through the whole pack of information. I think we would be here all day, but I will draw your attention to the statement that we received in April this year from Mr. Murali Mohan. And there was lots of assertions, certainly around the Licensing Act issues that have been highlighted. And again, I'll stress that it's really good that they've been addressed and that's been validated by the Licensing Authority during their visit. But I want you to focus on the final paragraph of that document, and that's the only part of the document that really addresses the concern that we're bringing before you today, which is around this this employment of an alleged illegal worker. Mr. Murali Mohan reaffirms in that document that no working took place at all between that individual and that store. But you can see that that is completely contradicted, both in the signed interview statement, if you like, from both Mr. Murali Mohan and the individual themselves, both taken, incidentally, by two different immigration officers. We can see from those documents that there has in fact been, if you like, a relationship between that individual and this store since April 2024. And let's not forget as well, it is only mentioned very briefly. I've got so many documents, I forget which one it is, but there is a reference to this individual holding an amount of cash, approximately £100, on their person. And when asked for an explanation about why that money was on their person, the response was that they were holding it on them because there was concerns around theft, which we know is commonplace within retailers. And unfortunately, retailers are, as is reported in the media, victims of huge amounts of crime at the moment. So I can understand why employees would be encouraged to do that. We've got, with it, as part of those conversations, and has been recorded on the CCTV, the audio within the CCTV, there's reference to, and some of the sort of key legible words are reference to the boss. There's reference, and you'll hear it shortly, but there are references to the boss. That again is a term that's naturally commonly used for somebody who's working under the control of somebody or is supervised by somebody. I don't really want to go on much beyond that. I know that Mr. Day, has already highlighted the fact that a lot of the Licensing Act issues have been addressed. But it's important that we focus on that key evidence that that alleged illegal worker was working at the time of the visit. And there is another element, and I will refer to Fee just to say a few more words, but certainly for us, we have significant concerns around the exploitation of workers that sit outside the usual employment criteria. So it's making sure that people are paid the correct amount within the minimum wage, that are given safe and proper working conditions, but also benefit from sickness benefits and holiday pay and all of those things that come alongside, in addition to ensuring that they pay the relevant taxes, etc. But that's not what we're here about today. We need to focus on the fact that within the guidance, and I've tried to refer as briefly as possible just so that you don't have to go through everything, within my supplementary documentation, the various guidances that are available out there that indicate that this is a very serious matter. And the purpose that we brought it before you today for determination is because it would be wrong of us not to. And of course, it's for you to determine what the proper outcome should be. But before we sort of address any of them, I'm happy to take any of your questions. Once of course, I'll just hand it over to Fiona with your blessing, just to say a few words, if that's okay.
I'm happy for Fiona to continue.
So just a few words surrounding why we were there. All in our visits are intelligence-led. We do not go to any random businesses ever. All of our visits, as I said, we receive intelligence. We never know where it comes from because it's sanitised by the time it comes to us. But we go there to investigate. And in this case, it was for illegal workers. And as it was a licensed premises, it's why we went in under the power, section 179. The ability to work illegally is a key driver of illegal migration. It encourages people to break UK's immigration laws. It provides the practical means for immigrants to remain unlawfully in the United Kingdom because they are in either the gig economy or they are working below the radar. It encourages people to take risks in trying to get to the UK and enter illegally by using unscrupulous people smugglers. And it also leaves them vulnerable to exploitation. One of the things I do enjoy about my job is being able to engage with people like that. They don't have a voice. They know they're unlawfully present in the United Kingdom. They are exploited quite often, getting paid £10 for working a whole day or not at all. They're not given a contract of employment to protect themselves. They don't have the ability to have sick pay. They don't have the ability to have paid holiday. They also know that they can't tell anybody about this, because if they do, then it raises their immigration status above the parapet. So they're between a rock and a hard place. And part of my job is also to assist people, if I come across them, in either enabling them to regularise their stay in the United Kingdom and therefore work lawfully, or investigate the business further with regard to a civil penalty for employing illegal workers. Illegal working results in businesses that are not playing by the rules and undercutting legitimate businesses who are. Legitimate businesses are paying above the minimum wage or the minimum wage. People employing illegal workers are not. It therefore means that they are not able to, or legitimate businesses aren't able to afford to employ illegal workers because they know that they can go somewhere else. They don't pay tax. They don't pay national insurance. They just often get paid cash in hand, which also has tax implications. So it's not just about exploitation. There is a wider picture, and this I'm speaking generally as well at the moment. Undercutting local businesses, it negatively impacts on the wages of lawful workers, as I've explained, and it can be linked to other labour market abuse, such as tax evasion, breach of national minimum wages, and exploitative working conditions. And by exploitative working conditions, again, I will say no protections afforded by a contract, no adequate training, quite often no adequate clothing protection, all that sort of thing. So again, we look at things like this when we go to businesses. It's not just one facet that we look at. There are multiple facets to a visit that we undertake. Working illegally is a criminal offence, and on conviction in England and Wales, an illegal worker may receive a custodial sentence of up to 6 months and an unlimited fine. And employing illegal workers undermines the licensing objectives, specifically the prevention of crime and disorder. Again, if you have somebody who is working illegally in the country and you've not conducted your adequate right to work checks, you don't know who you're employing. They could have a criminal history, for instance, but they are actually breaking immigration law if they have not got the right to work and the employer has not done due diligence and conducted the right to work checks, which are free, and you can do them every 3 months, every 6 months. It's a protective measure that we've put in place for employers to be able to protect themselves by undertaking simple check. The worker will come to you with a check code. The employer will give the check code and run it through gov.uk. And if it comes back with a green check code, then that means, yes, the people have the adequate permissions to work. Often there are caveats to that, especially surrounding students where they're limited to 20 hours during term time. However, that increases out of term time too. They can work as many hours as they like. So again, it's a preventative and a protective measure for employers that's been put in place by the government. We don't routinely refer to seek licensing reviews, but we do so in selected cases. But also I have a relationship with Dorset Police where if we go in under Section 179, if a licensing officer is not available because they are very busy and they do have an incredible workload, then we can still go in and conduct our visit under Section 179. But what I will do is I will ask the relevant licensing questions as a responsible authority, and I will then put that together in the report. It will then get sent to BCP in this case, and also Dorset Licensing for any, if they want to take any action they see fit. I am there as a responsible authority, but I'm not there as somebody who enforces that sort of thing. That's down to BCP, and I know what the license is because I read it before I go out. But that's the process. The Home Office recognises that our role is to bring these concerns to your attention, and this is why we are here today. 3 individuals, I would say, have looked at this case so far, 3 individual teams. So following the licensing visit, we served what is called a civil penalty referral notice. At that stage, it is a referral, and it's based on our findings. It gets sent to our civil penalties team. The civil penalties team will then undertake their own investigation, and they will either levy the penalty as they see fit, or they will issue any other warning letter or a no action notice, or they will reduce the fine. In this case, it was upheld, and it was then subject to review by the premises business, and this was then sent to an individual team. Once it's objected to, it then gets sent to a separate team. That team then looked at it, reduced it by 5,000 because he had sent in, or the business had sent in a response, and it's standard procedure when going through objections to premises like penalties, that a small reduction is often given, especially if it's a first offence, which is the case in this instance. However, the £40,000 penalty was upheld. And I understand that it's again up for appeal at the present time. So that's immigration enforcement, initial, civil penalties team, second team, third team is the independent team who look at the objection, and each time that decision has been upheld. So this case has also been looked at through the lens of Section 15 of the Immigration, Asylum and Nationality Act of 2006. And this act outlines the penalties for employers who employ individuals who are not legally entitled to work in the United Kingdom. And it's essential that it makes it illegal for employers to employ an adult who is subject to immigration control, as was the case in this instance, but does not have the appropriate leave to enter or remain in the UK, and had not done since pretty much after he arrived in 2022, or if their leave is invalid, has ceased to be in effect, that they also have no right to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your application. So, for my clarity, Home Office Immigration Enforcement have established that Dee was working at the premises illegally. This has been reviewed by 3 teams and upheld by all of them.
It was upheld by 2. When I say 3 teams, initially it was immigration enforcement. So my team went in, we established through questioning and examination that this person, not only the employee, but also via questions with the employer, that this person had been working at the premises. So yes, so we then, based on that, had grounds to serve a civil penalty referral notice, which was then sent to our civil penalties team. They reviewed it, undertook their own investigation, and upheld the penalty or levied the penalty. The premises then objected, so it was then sent back, but it was then reviewed by an independent team. So that's 2 teams who've reviewed it and 1 who's referred it. So 3 teams. There's and throughout all of this, and the illegal working has been established, yes, and upheld.
Okay, are there further lines of appeal open to the premises regarding that?
Yeah, as I understand it, it's subject to appeal at the present time, yes. And I have received clarification from our civil penalties team that that is the case at the present time.
Thank you. Subcommittee, do you have questions of the applicant?
If I may, Chair. Out of curiosity, and I was pleased to hear that you conduct the questions which the licensing authority would ask should they be visiting, and I think that's a very useful cooperation with the licensing authority for upholding the licensing objectives. Could I just ask a technical question? When your officers, or in this particular case yourself, visited, do you have personal protective equipment, and do you have body-worn cameras?
Yes, we do have PPE for us, for clarification for the panel. PPE for me would be a stab vest, or bulletproof vest. I have a baton and I have handcuffs. I also have plastic cuffs and a first aid kit on my belt kit. I do not have body worn at the present time, no.
Just mention that you're trying.
But we are getting it. Yeah, it's in the process. With regard to body worn, it's in the process of our team is actually going to be the test bed for Home Office body worn for immigration enforcement. So I do believe that's going to be in the next couple of months. So yes, but not at the time of the visit.
Thank you, Chair. That's really quite informative. So the nature of the interview itself and the statements taken at the time, that wasn't recorded on CCTV, which you had.
No, it wasn't recorded. We did ask for access to CCTV and we were told it wasn't available because it's routine whenever we do Section 179 visits. It's recorded on what's known as my DPMB, which is a digital pocket notebook. Everything is typed verbatim into that. There are questions that you ask the person in front of you. The answers are then digitally recorded. Everything is time-stamped, date-stamped, and then at the end of the interview, there's a declaration. And what that declaration does is we explain to the person that you can sign it. You don't have to sign it if you don't want to, because it's not going to make any difference to any enforcement action I may or may not take following this visit. What it does do is we read the questions and answers back and we'll show them and say, this is the question I asked, this is the answer you gave. Are you happy with that answer? If they are, then we say, if you're happy to sign it, then you can sign it. And then when they sign it, it closes the form down. It's digitally shut. Nobody can alter it. You can look at it, but you can't change it.
And if I may, Chair, just one more question. On visits such as this, Fiona, is it normal that you'll go in alone, e.g. your particular team from immigration, or is sometimes the Dorset Police or the relevant police service in attendance?
We do a lot of partnership working as much as we can. So in this instance, it was just myself and my team that went in because unfortunately licensing and police licensing were not available. But it's not unusual for us to go in with licensing. We do try and get in with licensing and police licensing as much as we can, but obviously with our respective workloads and days, it doesn't always work out that way. The power of entry that we use, again, is a reason why I send the reports afterwards, because I've used the licensing power to gain entry. So policy dictates that we send reports to both police licensing and, in this case, BCP, if they're unable to attend, so they can make their own conclusions following our visit.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Filer.
No questions at this time.
BCP officers, do you have questions of the applicant? Premises representatives, do you have questions of the applicant?
Through you, as usual. Yes, please, sir. Firstly, I wonder, and I'll address the initial questions, Sergeant Gosling, if I may, before turning to immigration. Why was there a delay of 5 months between the original visit and you instituting the review proceedings?
Yes, it's not the outcomes, especially when they are when we receive or when immigration have a process of further scrutiny around their visits. Unfortunately, it does push those dates along somewhat. It's frustrating for us both, I think, that it does, but unfortunately, it is a case that we monitor these progresses, and it's just owing to workloads. We bring it to your attention as soon as possible, but unfortunately, there are delays, I'm afraid.
Okay. Mr. Murila Mohan has been there ever since this licence was granted back in 2008. As far as the police are concerned, I'm putting for one moment putting aside for one moment the question of an alleged illegal worker, have you had any issues at all with these premises at any time since 2008? When I say you, I mean the police.
Certainly from a police licensing visit, from a police licensing perspective, we haven't. There was nothing that particularly was apparent on our police system around specific concerns. No doubt the neighbourhood team will have some engagement potentially at some point, but not in respect of any particular issues that have been highlighted.
And since the Home Office Immigration Enforcement team visited and you expressed your concerns, have you followed up with a visit in the same way as Mrs. Rogers and the licensing team did to check compliance, etc.?
No, we haven't.
Right. The premises, as you know, has a fairly comprehensive CCTV system that also includes external areas. Have you at any time requested copies of any of the CCTV in connection with this matter?
No.
Any reason for that?
Not particularly.
In terms of attempted mediation, effectively there hasn't been any in this case. Would you agree?
I would agree, yes. Yeah.
I have, on behalf of the premises licence holder, suggested some amendments to the licensing conditions. I don't propose to take you through those. Have you had an opportunity to consider them, and do you have any comments to make with regard to the proposals?
Only to say that those, as Mrs. Rogers stated earlier, any improvements to conditions are always welcome to make them more current and to perhaps address themes that are more apparent now than perhaps they were when the application was granted. However, our observations around those proposals were that they simply didn't address the concerns that we were highlighting, and certainly didn't come anywhere near addressing the concerns around the immigration concerns, the immigration's issues that have been identified, which of course would be difficult, if not impossible, to condition, if you like, to a licence.
Precisely. One matter in particular, if I can draw your attention to Annex 2, the first crime and disorder condition relates to CCTV. And what it says at the moment is that a CCTV system should be installed and or maintained in accordance with the reasonable recommendations of Dorset Police Crime Prevention Officer. The CCTV system shall include an external camera covering the entrance to the premises. CCTV recordings should be retained for a minimum period of 28 days and copies made available to the police and other responsible authorities on request. Now, the proposed amendment includes a requirement that facilities be made available for police responsible authorities to inspect effectively on demand. There was nothing in the license conditions that required facilities to be made available for the immigration officers to look at it there and then, but they could have asked for copies, and I'll ask in a moment whether or not they did. That would be a significant improvement that might have assisted one way or the other in this case, might it not?
What we find, and I appreciate Mr. Day is highlighting that there are some perhaps issues with the wording of the current conditions that might be improved. What we generally find in the dozens of visits that are conducted every month is that premises where we have had concerns highlighted or where a responsible authority visits will generally be more than happy to support any reasonable request to assist our inquiry with viewing of CCTV, quite frankly, regardless of whether or not they are conditioned to do so. So, you know, I think having a situation where we're trying to put in place rules that people can't avoid a request and wording it as such, I think that we're not in a place that we would like to be anyway with that. You know, it's not about us being able to run roughshod. That's not what I'm saying. But generally, our more compliant premises are more than happy to assist the police and other responsible authorities wherever they can, regardless of the conditions. And you know, if I'm honest, the changes to that condition would still not have addressed the fact that we've got concern around this alleged illegal worker.
Just want to deal with licensing matters as well. You said when you were making your presentation that it's really good that licensing issues were resolved. What licensing issues do you think were resolved?
But I think the fact that Mrs. Rogers has visited following the visit from immigration and identified that there are no significant issues other than those highlighted to trading standards, my assumption is therefore that following that visit, no breaches of any conditions have been found, which demonstrates a strong compliance and no need to support this review or to take any further action. So I'm more than happy to bow to Mrs. Rogers' experience in this area and accept the fact that the issues that had been identified during the immigration visit had been resolved by that time, which is great.
But what issues do you say are resolved? Because our position will be that, for example, challenge 25, and funnily enough, strictly speaking, having challenge 25 signage up was a breach of condition because the condition requires challenge 21, but that's being semantics. Our position is that the signage in accordance with the condition was already there. For example, that there was a copy of the license summary and there only needs to be one copy that was on display. The full license was in the office, which is the requirement. You don't display the full license. You don't have to display several copies of the summary all around the place, etc., etc. So I'm just, you know, what you seem to be implying is that there was a panic after the visit on the 9th of November to put everything right. And I'm suggesting to you that no, because everything was okay, everything was right at the time of the visit on the 9th of November.
I don't think I've got anything to add around that. Okay. I know that Mr. Day is making that assertion. I'm taking the information that we've had following the immigration visit and the shortfalls identified during that visit. And when you contrast that with the visit that's been conducted by Mrs. Rogers, it's clear that those issues have been addressed. Now, of course, it will be when it's shortly for Mr. Day to make the assertion that perhaps it was always in place, and that will be one for the committee to determine and apply the appropriate weight. What I would say is that I would encourage you to ensure that you do not lose focus of the fact that these, if you like, I think I identified them as symptomatic issues regarding the Licensing Act. Do not just move you too far away from the most significant issue, that being the employment of an alleged illegal worker.
May I turn, please, to, do I address you as Officer Smythe? I don't want to get that wrong. Thank you. Then, again, in much the same order, is there any reason in this case why, you went along and you did this visit? When I say you, I mean, I do apologise, sir, through you. Can you help us as to You are a responsible authority. You conducted this visit without support from police or licensing. That's not a criticism, that's a fact. Why was it that you then left it to the police to bring the review proceedings rather than do it yourselves? In which case there may not have been a delay of as many months as there has been.
Okay, so we have a very good relationship with Dorset Licensing, and we have a significant workload ourselves. We can bring reviews ourselves personally. In this instance, we sent a report, and we are either happy to, we say we're either happy to take it to review, or we are happy to support you. And if either Dorset Police Licensing, BCP, or both say we will take it on your behalf, then we are very grateful for that, because our team is a very small one, and I don't think it would have contributed significantly to any delay. It's not a significant decision, as in we decided not to. It's just we send the report in, and then if it's decided that we'll take the review, we'll take the review. We have a discussion amongst ourselves, and we just find the avenue that's best. And in this case, Dorset Police Licensing said they would be happy to take it with support from ourselves and submissions from ourselves. Does that answer the question? Yeah, thank you.
In this case, with regard to the alleged worker, and I'm going to call him D, can we just confirm his status? Through you, Chair, he arrived in this country legally. He didn't come over on a little boat or smuggled in the back of a lorry or anything like that. Is that correct?
No.
He arrived illegally.
No, sorry, I thought I misheard you. You've just said that he arrived illegally through a small boat.
No, I said
no, he didn't.
No,
He
arrived legally.
Initially.
Yes. Yeah. He arrived legally as a student or purported student, yes.
That part is correct.
And at that stage, he was given the right to work in the UK.
Yes.
Right. For whatever reason, it appears that he failed to enroll on the course, or whatever happened, he didn't do it. And as a result of that, his leave to remain was curtailed. It was stopped or withdrawn, whatever the technical expression is.
Correct.
When was that?
He was actually, he failed to enrol on the 28th of February 2022, and he received his curtailment letter on the 18th of the 8th, 2023.
And do you know what happened to him since then, and what, if any, attempts were made to remove him?
He would have received a curtailment removal notice. The instructions in that curtailment and removal notice were that he had to leave the United Kingdom or contact the Home Office in order to regularise his stay, perhaps look for another sponsor, perhaps change the terms and conditions of his visa, because he had not enrolled as a student. He failed to do so and disappeared.
So next seen at these premises.
Correct.
He was arrested. Can you just help us as to what's happened since then? Was he released? Was he forcibly removed? Just tell us what happened, please.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I can disclose personal information relating to a case with the Home Office that the alleged worker has. I wouldn't feel comfortable in that. All I can say is that he was subject to immigration control. He was arrested and he was detained following this visit. Further than that, I don't feel comfortable in disclosing anything further, as I do not think it would be fair to the person concerned.
Let's not go into detail, but can you just confirm at least that he, as far as you're aware, is no longer in this country, and indeed there is some evidence?
I'm not happy. I reiterate, I'm not happy to discuss a case.
I'm not sure that that's
I'm sorry,
relevant to
but
this
that's not
immediate
right.
proceeding.
Right. And then In terms of the CCTV, did you request copies of the CCTV?
We requested access to CCTV at the time of the visit, as it's routine for us to do so. Mr. Morales-Mohan stated he didn't have access. He would have had the ability to provide CCTV had he completed his civil penalties referral form, because they will ask, and did so because I've seen the form, asked him if he had any evidence supporting, and he didn't provide it at that time. So the civil penalties team would have asked him to provide evidence, and he failed to do so in this instance.
Sorry, can you give us the date of that notice? When would he have received it?
I haven't got the date, but I've had sight of the form, and it's when they send it out to Mr. Morales-Mohan, and it says this worker has been alleged to be found at your premises, and all he's written underneath in the area that it says to provide proof was he didn't work at this premises, or he didn't work for me, and that was the sum total of the information that he provided.
Can you bear with me one moment?
No additional evidence, just a statement.
No, Chair, sorry, and he would have, if Mr. Day is saying about providing CCTV, if I was in his position, I would be providing as much evidence to back up not receiving a civil penalty. That was Mr. Morales-Mohan's opportunity to provide CCTV. Once an arrest team has gone in and we've served a civil penalty notice, that's where our involvement ends. The civil penalties referral team then take over, conduct their investigation and ask for things like proof and things like that. That would have been the time that Mr. Morales-Mohan could have provided that as evidence, but didn't.
Sorry, the form I'm holding up, is that the information request form?
Sorry, Chair, the only other thing,
Could you tell me what that is?
It is a letter from, it's a letter from the Immigration Enforcement addressed to Hillside Stores Limited, information request, right to work, issue date 5th of December 2024.
We have not received this in our information pack,
I know.
and I'll take it.
To the question, did you provide any more evidence to the civil penalty team and CCTV?
Right, the short answer to that is, well, we'll deal with that when it's our turn, if you don't mind, but the short answer to that is no. CCTV was not provided to the team, but the form was fully completed, it was returned, and there are now proceedings in the county court that are live by way of the further appeal against the findings and the penalty of £40,000 that has been imposed.
Okay, which is in the papers.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's fine. To be honest.
Chair,
Yeah.
I can't agree more that the questions that are being asked pertain to a lot of post arrest and post interview at the scene, and it's to do with the formalities of that process within the immigration remit, if you like, between Mr. Morales-Mohan and the immigration officers and the enforcement and those that levy the fines or the penalties. But you know, I think that there is we are detracting away from, certainly with regards to the licensing element, and the questions should be really kept focused on that.
Well, I think what we've got to note is, because a submission has been made that by not providing CCTV earlier, that there's something to hide, I think is what we're saying, immigration is saying. So I think that's really the point that is important.
I'll address that at the appropriate time.
Okay.
If I can just finish through you, Chair, just a couple of other questions. You said that you didn't have body-worn video on the day. Was it available, or has it not been made available at all?
As I reiterated earlier or stated earlier, Home Office staff do not routinely wear body worn. It has been in the pipeline for a while. So in answer to your question, I did not have body worn. It was not available to me because it hasn't been available to Home Office enforcement officers up until now.
This has been covered earlier in the hearing.
Now, I just wanted to confirm, and the way in which we've had these produced late yesterday. Can you just explain to me how these sort of interview notes are actually produced? You mentioned it, but how are they typed up if you're conducting an interview? And are they complete?
This is my digital personal pocket notebook. We used to have manual notebooks, however, it's digitally done. So we're sat there, we open a form. In this case, it's like an encounter form or an arrest form. We open it's his digital history of the visit, and it's in there and it's
Thank
locked.
you. This has already been explained in a reasonable amount of detail. It seems like we are covering prior grounds. Do you have anything new in context?
Yes. Were either of these gentlemen formally cautioned?
In respect of the alleged illegal worker, yes, he was given the full administrative caution. In respect of Mr. Morale Mohan, he was not, because he was not under arrest, because he was not a person subject to immigration control.
Thank you. I've got no further questions.
Thank you. So do we have any further questions of the applicant at this point? So we go directly to questions of the premises.
Chair, I don't have a question at this point. If I don't ask it at this point, will I have an opportunity to ask something later if something arises?
Who did you want to direct?
Of the applicant.
I would recommend that you make your question
I haven't got one at the moment, so if one arises, I'll leave it to your better judgment whether or not it can be asked.
Okay.
Mr. Day to present.
Mr. Day, if you would like to present on behalf of the premises.
So with your leave, what I would prefer to do is to deal with the CCTV first so that we get that out of the way. As I have already indicated, it does show the individual's concern, hence it should be off the record. However, I don't think there is any difficulty, and in the interests of as much transparency as possible, in me saying that what you will see in the first short clip is the alleged worker coming into the public part of the shop from the rear. The second shows him very briefly behind the till and being then detained. And the third one shows him having been handcuffed and spoken to by the officers. The next one, and when you look at these, can you please take care to note the timing on each one, because that is of some significance. The next one shows my client coming out of the fire door at the rear of the premises and going round to the front at the same time. Well, I say same time, literally a minute or two after you've seen the first one. And then the final one is one that my client took, showing the route out of the shop that he took through gates and to the front of the premises. And that's just by way of elaboration. So with your leave, perhaps we could exclude the press and public and watch the videos.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Day. Yeah, I think it might be useful if we take we will take them in the videos in closed session, and I think it would be useful if we take a video and then a commentary, and then a video, then a commentary, if you're in agreement.
Yes, it'll be a very short commentary because the video speaks for
It
itself.
just it anchors the context and the commentary to the particular video, having gone through video reviews before.
Thank you.
It's useful, I feel. We will need to close the session whilst we review this information. I will refer to... Okay, so CCTV evidence has been provided on behalf of the premises and will be shown in an exempt session. Under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 1 and 2 in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information. Do we have agreement for this?
Councillor George Farquhar agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, I also agree and accede to us going into close. Okay, thank you for bearing with us whilst we entered closed session and took the opportunity for a comfort break. I would like to pass back to the premises to conclude their presentation. Mr. Day.
Thank you, Chair. This is a difficult one. You will have seen the volume of papers in which my client denies having hired an illegal worker. As the police in the review application have properly pointed out to you, and I have accepted that in the skeleton argument that you've seen and which I will not repeat, it is not your place to judge that issue. There is a right of appeal which has been exercised, and in the fullness of time, heaven knows how long that will take with the way the court system is at the moment, the court will make an adjudication one way or the other. The difficulty that you have is this. You must approach this, unfortunately, on the basis that, yes, as far as you're concerned, there was an illegal worker there. The difficulty that you have is that in determining a proportionate reaction to that, you need to reach an assessment as to just how serious a case this was. And in that sense, you may want to form a view as to how often this gentleman was there and on what basis, etc. He certainly wasn't living there. It would appear that there was a suspicion that he was in the flat above, but you will have read all of the papers there. There were tenants. The immigration officers did go into there and found no evidence that he was actually working there. You'll also be conscious of the fact that there is no direct evidence that has been given by anybody. Sorry, shall I wait? There has been no direct evidence of this gentleman actually working, in the sense that it would have been really very easy if the information was he was there on Monday of last week to say to the premises, provide me, as is required by your license, with a copy of the CCTV for 11 o'clock last Monday, when we understand this chap was behind the till serving customers, etc. There isn't anything like that at all. This was not an individual who had arrived in the country illegally. He was here legitimately and originally had a right to work here. So in terms of all of the assertions that have been put about the seriousness of this, whilst I would be the first to admit that and to accept that working illegally is serious, on the grand scale of seriousness, I would respectfully suggest that this is near the bottom. I would also suggest to you, in fact, not suggest, assert, that in terms of the licensing objectives, there is no issue with regard to public nuisance, public safety, protecting children from harm, etc. The premises have had test purchases from the licensing authority, and my client will also tell you that he also had test purchases from the National Lottery, and all of those were passed. All of the conditions of the license were being complied with. There is no suggestion here of disorder, and the only criminality associated with the premises is the alleged unlawful worker. So you have to decide what it is that you're going to do. As Sergeant Gosling has quite rightly pointed out, it is well nigh impossible to think of any license condition that you could write that would make sense. You know, you can't put on a license, do not employ illegal workers, make sure that you carry out rights to work check, because all of that is legislation anyway, and you're not supposed to duplicate other legislation. So in that sense, I entirely agree with him. But nevertheless, your response has to be proportionate. What can you do here, and what is the purpose of the review? I hesitate to say it, but there can be only one purpose here, and that is, in effect, punishment, or retribution. That can be the only outcome here, because you can't really do anything else. If you remove the DPS, then it's his business, it's his shop. That is, if you like, a punishment.
Mr. Day, we do not deal in retribution or punishment. We are here to ensure that the licensing principles are upheld.
Indeed. So what might you be able to do to uphold the licensing objectives in this case? Revoking the license won't do anything in that sense. He has been trading successfully for the last 6 months without any issues whatsoever since the review application was brought, and he will tell you that nothing has changed, except that that's not quite right, because as a direct result of this, and as you will know, he lost his national lottery terminal and scratch cards, and that's had a huge effect on his business. Yes, having the terminal and selling the scratch cards produced a profit, but more to the point, it was a service which brought people into the shop. And when they came into the shop to buy their scratch card or buy their lottery ticket, they would buy something else as well. So the consequence of this already has been very serious for him. It is also the case that as it stands, it's a £40,000 civil penalty, fine, call it what you will. And he's been put to other expense and costs. After how many years there? 17 years, married with 3 young children, the youngest only 8 months old. You can understand his concern. There can be absolutely no question that he would ever fall into the trap of not doing absolutely everything to make sure that he complies, not just with the licensing conditions and so on and so forth, but with all other aspects of the law. And in this case, looking at the situation as it is today, and of course, you're obliged to do that in exactly the same way as if there was an appeal, the judge on the appeal or the magistrate on the appeal would have to look at the situation as it was then and can take into account anything else that may have happened both for or against. Then I have to suggest to you that in this case, although the guidance says to you that you should, even in the first instance, seriously consider revocation, that is one step, one very big step down from saying you must revoke. If it were the case that you must revoke, then I have no doubt that Parliament would have written it into the Licensing Act to say, if you're caught doing this, that's it, bye-bye licence, bye-bye your job, your future, and everything else. So for those reasons, I would suggest that either removing him as DPS or revoking the licence or removing a licensable activity, because the only licensable activity is the sale of alcohol, and if you remove that, it's tantamount to revoking the licence. It's one and the same thing. That on the particular facts of this case, having regard to everything else that has been a consequence of that visit all those months ago in November, that the appropriate course is to simply look at the terms of the licence, And you can vary that, amend the licence in the manner that I have suggested and which has been effectively approved of, my words, not theirs, by both Mrs Rogers on behalf of the Licensing Authority itself and by Sergeant Gosling on behalf of the police. It is better. You can ask this gentleman any questions you like, of course you can, but he is a confident, capable individual who came into this business at the tender age of, I think you said 23. He's in his late 30s now. Nothing like this has ever happened to him before. Nothing like this will ever happen again. On the particular facts of this case, then I suggest you give him a huge slap on the wrist, amend the licence, but do not take any more serious action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. State. Okay, I do have a question concerning the interview of the alleged employer. The question was asked by immigration enforcement officers, how much is he paid? And the response was, sometimes it's food, other times food, and something like £10 as well. The question was asked, what duties does he do here? The answer was till and merchandise. He has no personal licence, so always me or my missus is here. Has he been trained to sell alcohol? There is always a DPS here, and when he does, he knows what to do. This indicates quite heavily that there is work and reward happening around these presents in that premises. Would you not agree?
I asked for a copy of the recording, which has, with respect, not been forthcoming. I haven't gone into this in detail because of the guidance in terms of the way in which you are to approach this issue. And you have no choice but to approach it on the basis of, yes, there was an illegal worker or somebody working who didn't have the right to do so. We're in difficulties because my client denies employing him, period. And for what it's worth, he also does not accept that that's his signature on, let's say, this form. It wasn't a form, it's on a device. But I'll let him speak for himself.
So, respectable Chair, the main reason I'm here and then I'm taking this court further, I've taken HM Revenue to the court, magistrate court in Bournemouth, is reason is there's so many places where they haven't done their parts right. And one of them, I can even like suggest you straight away now is I have signature of when you know him that was signed that Mr. D has put in here, which is completely contradictory to the sign which they have produced. And in many of his statements, Mr. D has mentioned that he was never interviewed. And as far as I know, the main reason I denied him from working in my shop is because he's not capable of speaking fluent English. I mean, not anyone who can understand hello, how are you, doesn't mean that they can hold a conversation or talk to someone in an appropriate manner where you can understand. So on an off-license basis, is customer service is the key in my business. So I always employ someone who's has really strong knowledge over the language and everything. That's the main reason I never employed him at first place. And even with the Home Office statement, the first statement given to me, they said he was arrested behind the counter. And once I produced them the CCTV that he was coming out from the staff-only area, straight away they changed the statement that he was arrested on the shop floor. There's so many contradictions, there's so many wrong times, and there's so many allegations. Hence, Bournemouth Court of Law believe that there is a reason for me to give me one full day trial on this form. Whereas on the licensing issue, I've never failed to uphold any of my duties. I've always been there. So with this statement, I can't really take them because there was no recordings, and then the signature looks terribly wrong. And then they have never interviewed me in the shop. The interview never took place in the shop. I was said I'll have a following phone call next day, and then I never received a phone call up to date.
Thank you.
So can we just clarify, are you saying that immigration enforcement have written information on their notepads that wasn't correct? Are you saying they fabricated?
Yes,
what
madam,
they
I
wrote?
am saying they are fabricated.
Okay,
Hence, I am taking them to the court.
right.
Because just because even one of the immigration officers said when I questioned
That's
him.
fine, as long as we know where you come from. And
Yeah.
Chair, maybe we could just ask immigration to clarify again how these are made.
I am quite satisfied. We've had two explanations of how the digital secure pad is filled in real time in the presence of those concerned. I don't have any questions about the recording.
It's precisely for that reason that I asked for copies of the recordings, and I haven't had them. All I've had is this. And I know that there were other interviews, in particular with D, and we haven't had any information with regard to them, particularly those that were conducted later when he did have an interpreter, and I believe was being legally advised.
Just said there's no recording.
No.
Record. Is that what you're, sorry?
Okay, we'll go again. If you have a question.
Sorry, it's really, is there can you have a recording from that machine?
A recording, as in a physical recording? No, it's
just
a digital
it's
file.
digital,
It's not a recording.
Yeah, that we have established that.
Yeah. Okay.
Now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, do you have questions?
So
for...
just a supplement to that, just to help, because I appreciate there isn't an audio, but there is there. Did you see there's a created app geolocation on the front page?
Yeah.
So, and I know that, yeah.
Right. So at the very least, we know that the secure notes were taken at that precise location, at that precise date and time.
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Okay.
I do note that the location is slightly different for the two of them. I do note that the location is slightly different. The easting is 407086 and then 088, and the northing is 95578, followed by 95579. How significant that is, I have not the faintest idea.
I note.
I do have questions.
I note your concern there. However,
Let's just ask her.
yeah. So in terms of the difference between the location, northings and eastings, would you expect, given the accurate some aberration, how accurate is it?
I'd like to say it's fairly accurate. With regard to the difference in time, sometimes if a form needs to be redone, it can differ. In this case, it could be that it was taken down at the custody.
It's more that the query was on the geolocation.
Could be that's done in
And-
custody.
Yeah,
It could be that
I would say that it's probably because it's down at custody, which would also account for the time because he was taken to custody afterwards. So that would account for the difference in geolocation from the initial interview and encounter.
So that would be in the shop.
Yeah. And also, as you move around the shop, obviously it is going to change slightly.
See, the difficulty with this is that this is an interview that was
I do have a
apparently when he was in custody. It's not a record of what he said when he was arrested and was in the shop. And this record also, when he was in custody, doesn't contain any detail about him being cautioned and the like. And it's less than 100% satisfactory, sir.
we heard the alleged employee being cautioned at the time on the video in the premises. It is on video 3. Yeah. I'm satisfied that a caution was issued by the officers present.
Then I doubted that because I couldn't hear it.
Okay, I think we need to move on to questions from the subcommittee members at this stage.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, and thank you very much, Mr. Day, for giving us the opportunity to get an answer directly from the DPS, if you please. So my first question as a starter for 10 is, can you name the 4 licensing principles, please? And can you actually describe how in each one that you uphold them? Thank you.
So first thing is the public safety. So anyone who walks into the shop, I have CCTV camera, well lighted area, and we have all those things to cover that one. And then the public nuisance, we never play a lot of music, or like we don't serve drunk persons or anyone like that. And then children's are always safe inside my shop. If you don't mind, I could quote something, but last month we had a case of 3 young children's. They've been followed by an adult. Those young 3 children ran past the co-op, ran past the petrol station, ran past another off-license shop, and they ran into me. So that made me feel proud because they felt safe inside my shop. I immediately called the police, called their parents. I waited until everything be sorted, so they are safe. And the other one is public safety. It's always been there. But those that police knew, anything happens in that area, I have a good CCTV camera, and I have given them thousands of CCTV images to cover the crimes and everything. I've always been there. So I've never failed in any places where I've served any underage or any minor persons. I started this job when I was 23, Chair. Respectively, if I'm supposed to be playful around that age, I have committed myself so well, and I've never done any mistakes. And then I'm 38 and I've got 3 kids, and they grow up in the same area where this shop is. I'm not going to I can't do anything wrong to the community that has really given me bread and butter for the last 15 years. And this one came out of a snowball, out of nothing. Like, I don't want to go into that thing, but if you leave that apart, I was a responsible license holder with no bad remarks. I was a responsible father. I was a responsible community member. And then what else I could do? I'm in a position where I can't even defend myself because it's an ongoing case. There's so much happening around. I don't want to sit here. You don't even have to take my words for it. I have proved myself in the last 15 years how capable of me running the off-license with no bad remarks. I worked with BCP Council. I worked with local community people. I worked with Dorset Police. I was being so cooperative, and all of a sudden, where's all those credits gone? I don't even know why I'm here.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's one of the questions which I always ask, because it's one of the questions which I find that it gives confidence to the hearing that a DPS actually understands the licensing principles and, more importantly, how they actually apply them. You didn't mention the 4th one. which is crime and disorder.
Crime and disorder, I was just talking through.
Can you give an example of how you actually prevent crime and disorder, please?
Crime and disorder. I have a till system, I pay extra money for them, where every time we sell 18 plus products, the till will automatically ask if he's 18 plus or something. So there's no way anyone behind my till can make mistake when there's a 18 plus product that is sold. Second thing, I have displayed prominently everywhere, even the photograph that they have taken would show you that challenge 25 was everything was there. And we train the staff every other 3 months. We give them strict instructions with how things happen. And then we do have refusal note, which I have given a bunch of refusal note to Sarah Rogers, madam, when she was on 19th. So that refusal notice cannot be prepared straight away. So as how the police surgeon suggested, I can't prepare myself all of a sudden with those 7 days to go back date and get the refusal note. I still have those refusal dates going back to few months back, which cannot be redone on the till. So which clearly shows to my respected chair that I was responsible person and I was trying to keep the law and order in my shop as much as under my control. Like there's not much, I do everything that I can do to keep them under control. And then CCTV is always in working condition. Staffs have been fully trained. We never serve underage people. We always take challenge 25 as a tackle, and we always stick to that all the time.
Thank you very much, Chair. If I may, I've got a follow-on question from that. And may I praise you on how well you articulate upholding the licensing objectives. You said that staff are trained. How many staff do you actually employ?
When I say staff, so basically it's an off-license shop with a minimum profit, respected sir. So we only employ like me and her doing most of the time. And then I did have a part-time staff who was registered and he was paying staff and he was in payroll as well. And then other time I do get friends and family helpers or like other shopkeepers because we work in a close community service, right? So when, for instance, when I'm working, we do the cash and carry for them. So when I do a cash and carry for them, they do come and cover them and they are all DPS in other premises. So they are well-trained people who stay behind the counter in the emergency time where they have to help us. So we work with a close network and family and friends. Apart from that, it's me, my missus. And then we do get part-time staff now and then. Like, for example, since we live in a city where I have universities, there's always part-time staff coming in around for works. That's always the case. Like they want a part-time staff. Sometimes, mostly what happens is the difficulties that we have is we train them. We spend so much time in training them. By the time they get another job, and this job is the least job they want to stick to cover their financial difficulties. So we train them and they leave. So that happens most of the time as well. Like 90% of the time, trainees leave once they get a proper job.
I understand that. You mentioned friends and family. If I may, Chair, do you have a record of the training that you actually conduct for each of your friends and family or people that help out or part-timers? You mentioned that you had part-timers that you sometimes get in. How do you actually get those? So there's two questions. One, do you keep a record of the training which you conduct? And two, do you keep a record of your part-time staff that help you out? And in that particular case, how do you source your part-time staff that you mentioned?
So basically, part-time staffs are fully, we check them, and then, of course, they are in the payroll. And then that's legally, that's been done. You can check my thing. And then when it comes to family and friend, for example, the friend who's sitting behind me, he's a DPS, and he has an off-license as well. So he's a DPS, he has a personal license, so he's already a trained person. And then he doesn't work like long hours or something, he just comes there for 1 or 2 hours to help me out. And then we do have a training record in the shop when we train somebody. But again, whenever the part-time staff comes in, we train them, we put them in the record. And then when Mrs. Sarah present was on the other day, I showed her the training form as well.
Could I just ask once more, when you say the temporary staff, the part-time staff, where do you source them from? Do you go to an agency? Is it friends and family recommendations?
No,
I don't understand.
Literally, people do come in. So sometimes they do come in recommendations. So for instance, like when they work in one of my others, we have a community or WhatsApp group where they say, look, I have a staff who's leaving or changing his location, and then he's been worked in another shop, right? And then we say, like, can you send his details? And so we do share details like that. When they're moving, or moving. Sometimes people study in Bournemouth University, move to London. Sometimes they study in London, they move to Bournemouth. So it comes through fellow shopkeepers where that's how we get the contacts. But sometimes people do walk into the shop, leave their CVs, look, I'm looking for a part-time job, they leave their numbers. So that happens as well.
Understood, Chair. Can I just ask another question before we give Councillor Fire a chance? We heard from the evidence that you were advised to put a licence in a more prominent position. Can you confirm that you've actually done that?
Yes, respected member, straight away. So I was thinking that I was displayed behind the counter, and then since they already noticed that for some reason, I was advised by Sarah Rogers, madam, that to put them in a more prominent places. I moved it straight away while she was presenting.
Can we confirm that that's the case, please, Chair, with the licensing officer?
Yes, yes.
I am happy for you to follow your lines of inquiry until you're satisfied that you have the information you need to make a decision.
Thank you very much. So these canisters for nitrous oxide, you want to talk us through how they came to be in the store at the particular time of the intervention by the immigration services?
Yes, respected member. So basically, would you mind? I can show you that can confirm it. So there was a takeaway running in the name of 289B Kingston Road Foodaholics. I got the domestic rates paperwork, which you can check in council as well. So that was a takeaway, which was run by my father-in-law who had his health issues, and he's passed away in this January. And the canisters were used as cream chargers to make milkshakes and everything. I'm sure you're aware of them. So legally, the UK government says anyone who runs a takeaway and who uses for the food industries can use those canisters. So once the business was closed, I was a responsible person. I didn't want to hand over the key back to my landlord with leaving these canisters into their premises. So I spoke to the flats owner, and then I would also like to remind to the committee members, the canisters were never found in my premises. So that was not in the premises, that was the adjoined premises where the immigration officers intimated me to open those doors. If not, they wouldn't leave me in peace. So where I have to get the permission from the flat people, because that cannot be accessed by a general public, that cannot be seen by a general public, that cannot be accessed by staff, that cannot be accessed by myself. So there have to be two people, has to open one door from here and then the other door from other side. It's a common area for the flats, shop, and then the other takeaway. So that was the place where I stored them to safely dispose them, because of course I was getting rid of the takeaway. I have to empty every document, like every equipment, and then I didn't know this is going to come through. So I stored them in a secured place where nobody has access to.
Thank you very much. How did you dispose of them?
So I was given back to the supplier who supplied to me. So he has so after these being classified as another trade, I found the supplier who has supplied to us, and then he has come in and he has taken it and he has gone.
And do you have a record of that?
Yeah, I can definitely get it from him.
So your father-in-law, I believe, was responsible for the takeaway?
Yes, I mean, he has the lease, and then he was there, and then when he was diagnosed with, he lost both his kidneys working. He was diagnosed. Yeah, he was feeling ill a year ago, and then he passed away this January. So we have to terminate the business and hand over the keys back to the landlord. So I have emptied the premises. We ceased trading. So everything has happened. So I was just helping them, and then we sold every other equipments there to another catering person. He has taken everything else, and then he has taken, because I didn't want to give the canisters to them. The reason being is I haven't seen them having a catering license. So I said, I can't give you this. So I have to move them to the different premises. And then I again like to remind the chair that was not inside the licensed premises.
Absolutely, I understand that. The nature of these canisters, however, what was the nature of your father-in-law's business? And I'm sorry to hear that your father-in-law has passed away. You say a takeaway. What type of takeaway?
So basically, they were doing like fried chickens, but they were mainly doing most of the milkshakes, and then the bubble tea, and like different, like on milkshake, they have like 10 different varieties of milkshakes. The reason they have to use the canisters is because using the double cream spray is economically is not really. Imagine you have to use them on the daily basis to like so many cups. It's not really economical thing to do with the cans that you buy pre-filled. So what they use is you buy these canisters that's been connected to a device where you make your own double cream and then that sprays them into the milkshake. So legally, you can please check on any website. Anyone who runs a catering business can hold them.
I understand. I just wanted to know what type of business it was.
Yeah,
So
it was-
essentially, it was
delicate.
selling chicken.
Not
and,
chicken, it was like milkshakes, mainly
So
like
milkshakes aside.
milkshakes, bubble
Yes.
tea, and those kind of like.
On the question of the passport that was in your possession, you say that it's been, or the evidence back says that it was reported to the police as a burglary and the passport was stolen. Is there a crime reference number for that?
Yes. Do you want me to grab them straight away now? Or?
Yeah, so that's absolutely fine.
So if you want me to
Mr.
take
Day.
you through that, I can do that.
Mr. Day, we've already heard from your client that he denies that this evidence, indicates that he believes that this evidence is fabricated. You said yourself that there was no direct evidence taken at the time, your words. How do you explain the nature of this document, which, as we've heard, that it is date time stamped for when it's actually closed down? How do you explain that the evidence which is provided by your client and from D, as we refer to them, how did that evidence get to go into those sealed systems?
First of all, I didn't provide that evidence. That came last night from the police. Secondly, with respect, that's not what I said. What I said is that there is no witness evidence. Nobody has said, I went into that shop, I saw him serve customers, I saw him working, I saw him stacking shelves, or whatever it is. And what I said was that if there was intelligence available that he had been there on a particular date or particular time, as long as that was within the last 28 days, now to be 30 days, it would have been perfectly simple to download the CCTV to demonstrate either that he was there, or rather more difficultly, that he wasn't there. It's very difficult to prove a negative. But that hasn't happened. I cannot account for what is supposedly the interview with him that took place, one interview, apparently, when he was in custody, several hours after he was arrested and after he was spoken to within the shop itself.
Mr. Day, I do apologise. I obviously missed the witness, e.g. a third party, when I was considering your statement where you said there's no direct evidence taken at the time. I misinterpreted that to be this document, which apparently were produced by the DPS and D.
No, don't. Sorry, this isn't working. Turn it off. Turn it off. It wasn't produced by the DPS. It's produced by the Home Office.
I mean, the interview, the answers which are being given, which are already written out. Where do those answers come from to go into this immigration system?
You've heard what my client says. He denies that he said that. I can't take it any further. You're not here.
That's splendid, Chair. I do really appreciate that. Just one of the things which I note about the system, and when the evidence was given, I'm quite satisfied that these are actually sealed because it's actually date stamped to the second when it's signed off. Just on the matter of signatures, I think we've all experienced having to sign for a parcel on an electronic document at the door. I can quite happily testify that my signature on one of those electronic things has no relation to the signature which I'd write with a pen. If I may just ask, no, that's fine for the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Filer, would you like to address questions to the premises?
No, but I would like to refer to something in the police's evidence, which was referred to. I don't know when or if I'm even allowed to. I'm going to judge.
With the chair's discretion, I will allow you to make your inquiry.
Thank you. So what I want to know is, because I've listened to everything before I ask the question, what was the point of the dog incident? The dog appeared to be happy and healthy and naturally barking because someone was coming in. I can't see. I love dogs, but as do my fellow panel members. But what was the point of referring that dog to the RSPCA? And the other one that I'm not sure about is these canisters. We've seen a picture of the canisters, and they're not canisters of the sort that we find lying around on the road after a busy Saturday night. These are great big things. I mean, they're not things that you would have thought were going to be illegally used by youngsters. I wanted to hear what was being said before I asked the question, but they weren't exactly a box full of little things, were they?
If I may interject, I frequently come across the large heavy canisters in the alleyways, green spaces, recreation grounds, Charminster Road. They're a scourge. I think it's more the smaller metal cartridges are harder to get hold of. But that's my personal experience.
As being one of
Pardon me.
ignorance.
With respect, to answer the question around the dog, when immigration go into premises, we are looking at things other than also what we're there, but we just do referrals. It may be that there is no concern. However, it would have been remiss of me had I mean, the way the dog was behaving was he was a bit cowed. I could feel his spine, but I'm not an RSPCA officer. I don't know whether that's caused concern. However, I could not have lived with myself if I've not actually spoken to somebody about it. It's been resolved. It's done. It's just part and parcel of the job that we do.
Anything further? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, only just a couple of quick questions. There was mention earlier around the nature of this course of action and the fact that there has been, if you like, a punishment served in the form of a penalty and whatnot, which I think Mr. Day was suggesting that, you know, there has already been a punishment, if you like, in respect of the immigration matters. But my question to Mr. Day, would you accept that legislation, just for the purposes of clarity, isn't written in the sense that it's one or the other? There are various laws, they must be adhered to, and there are various procedures that sit independently of one another.
I don't quite understand the question. Yes, of course, there are different aspects to it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a civil penalty and we wouldn't be sitting here today, and there wouldn't be the forthcoming appeal in the county court. So, yeah, of course, there are different regimes, but to an extent, they all overlap and interlap. And in terms of deciding what might be a proportionate outcome in these proceedings, then it's my submission that you need to have regard to what other consequences there have already been. Right, that's what proportionality is all about.
And a follow-up, Chair, you would accept as well, Mr. Day, that the guidance as it is written is intended to protect situations such as this, whereby there shouldn't be any unnecessary delay, in the sense that bringing this matter now, even before perhaps other things have been determined, is still the right course of action.
I would respectfully suggest that it would have been the right course of action to bring this 5 months ago, a few weeks after the visit giving rise to concern. Had that happened, then it would have been much easier to have got all of the relevant CCTV footage. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that this CCTV footage, thanks to data protection and all the rest of it, has to be wiped. Otherwise, he's committing further offences, not least because on that day, for example, there were customers coming in and out of the shop and so on. So he took a view as to, well, I need to try and protect my own back in taking copies of what I think might be relevant, hence those 4 rather short bits of CCTV that you saw. So yes, I agree with you. The delay in this case, I think, is very unfortunate because it has, amongst other things, prejudiced his position, because it wasn't until he got all of the review papers and everything else that he needed to, or that he found out exactly what was being alleged and was then in a position to try and rebut it. Had we known that earlier, then, for example, that one of those cameras wasn't just had a camera. Unusually, it also has an audio feed, and that could have been run on for much longer to find out exactly what was said and by whom.
Just one follow-up then, Chair, on that point. So, but regardless of the fact that the notice wasn't given, you accept that Mr. Morali Mohan has conveniently been able to secure the footage, which he wants to show, but not the wider aspects of it.
I wish more of my clients had the foresight to download CCTV at the first hint of any issue, bearing in mind that these things get wiped. If you are suggesting that this has been deliberately edited in order to avoid something that didn't help, then that is very, very, very firmly denied. He decided to just keep these few clips, hopefully on the basis that it would assist him. And in one sense, yes, they do, because it has been said time after time after time that he was not in the premises when immigration arrived. Those clips clearly demonstrate that, yes, he was. So, as an example.
Chair, happy for me to put it. So on that point, actually, brings me neatly to my next question. Mr. Day, you just alluded to the fact that your client was at the premises, and therefore I would presume by that to be inside the premises. From the CCTV that's been shown, the immigration enforcement officers appear to enter via an unlocked door. Is that correct?
Right, can I clarify one point straight away? His evidence, which you heard, was not that he was inside the premises. What he said was that he had gone out to the back to have a cigarette. And in order to stop the smoke from getting into the premises, he'd closed the fire door. Once he'd closed the fire door, the only way back in was along the route that you saw in the final video, down the side, round the corner and to the front, where he then couldn't get back in because immigration officers prevented him from doing so. And you heard him give evidence and say that he tried banging on the door to try and get Dee to open it from the inside, because you can't open it from the outside. And then he realised, well, there's something's gone wrong here.
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, the immigration officers came in through the front door. Of course it was open, because the premises were open for business to customers. There was nothing to prevent them, like, walking in. Why lock the front door when you're open for business?
So that answers my one. I was just about to ask whether the front door to the premises, the one used by customers, was locked when Mr. Morali Mohan went out the back and couldn't therefore get back into the shop without going into the front door. So on that, does Mr. Morali Mohan routinely, as you say, leave the store with the front door open to customers and children and other people without any supervision whatsoever. We've already seen evidence of the fact there's concerns around theft, which is why money's kept in the alleged illegal worker's pocket. But it's left routinely. Does he routinely leave it open unsupervised? Because we see that, for example, in one of the latter videos, I think it was the third video of the fourth, when Mr. Murali Mohan was seen actually stopping for 13 seconds. He had no view of the front door of the store. He appeared to be on his phone. Do you not think that that could have been done either inside the premises, and because it implies that it was either unsupervised, or perhaps what we're suggesting is the fact that it was supervised in the form of the alleged illegal worker, and that's why perhaps Mr. Murali Mohan wasn't too concerned about taking his time using his phone.
Respected Chair, so it's a simple thing, and a day-to-day life happened on every shopkeeper who does the long hours, and then they're trying to exaggerate, in my view. The reason being is, the first thing, let me clear, the 13 seconds delay I was on the phone is, I have my CCTV on the phone, so I definitely have to keep an eye on what's happening, why it's not opening the door. Second thing, since there is nobody there, I would never go for a fact closing the door. And then I have made arrangements in my storeroom where there's a CCTV and then the bell rings on the storeroom. As soon as someone opens the door, it takes me hardly 3 seconds to get to the till from there. So we do long hours. There's a practical difficulty to pay so many people at two staffs at a time. So every shopkeeper you walk into Bournemouth, if you talk to them, this is our daily life. This is how we live. This is how we have to do it. Just to take a small break, we can't employ another one and pay them wages because you don't make that much money, because you can see retailing is going down the line. It's not really a flourishing business now for me to employ so many people like other supermarkets. So the reason, as Surgeon said, we never leave the premises unattended. If the theft takes place, leaving unattended, it's like me being the stupid person ever to do a business. How can I let my own stock being stolen and I could be the reason for it? Doesn't even make any sense. So I definitely take all the precautions that nobody does any shopliftings in my shop. That's my priority, because rather than anyone, that's my first concern, because that's my bread and butter. Why would I do that? Second thing, the delay is because I was checking my own phone for the CCTV, and that's the reason I was walking slow. And as soon as I realized I saw some uniforms in the shop, I ran into the shop.
Sorry, just for clarification, and I'm sorry, Sergeant Gosling, just to follow on from your question. You showed a video of a number of doors that you went through, and we heard that it was about 3 seconds or so to get back to the actual till area where, you know, licensable products are sold, where there are products which could cause harm to children, etc. I don't understand if somebody was not supervising the store, e.g. this individual, D, an alleged illegal worker, why you would go out the fire door so it closed behind you, and who were you relying on to open that door again, so that you could go back in and supervise the store to prevent any theft from the store, which you just said? Who else was in the store at that time? Because if you're outside a fire door, which you can't gain access to, how do you supervise the shop itself for any theft? So who was looking after the store to prevent any theft, or anybody coming through the front door to take the vodka off the front or to help themselves to vapes? Who was responsible for that, to let you back in so that you could carry on your duties as a DPS? Who is responsible for letting you back in that fire door that you locked yourself out of?
Again, respectable Chair, normally we do the breaks of facts in front of the shop. Because I wanted to talk to him in my own language, which I avoid in my shop, because talking in my own language inside my shop is something I don't really appreciate, or I don't like, because customer needs to understand what we're talking. So 99.9% of the time, we don't go to take facts in the back of the storeroom. And second thing, it was an unfortunate day. I wasn't know it's going to be a windy day. So normally on the video, you can clearly see when the door is open, we always put like something to stop the door from closing. On that day, I really closed it a little bit, thinking it's not going to shut by its own, but unfortunately the wind was heavy or something happened, it was shut. When I tried to open it, I couldn't open it. So it was that day. I don't know if it is called as a bad luck or it's just a coincidence. Like for instance, like it never happened to me before, but now I have really made arrangement to open the door from outside as well as soon as this happens. So I found it became a serious issue and I rectified it. And then second thing is I have 3 CCTV cameras, one in the middle showroom, one in the rear showroom, one in the shop, and one in my office. So your question is, I would answer is, since I want somebody to, even if they're doing in the storeroom while filling, there's a CCTV in the storeroom, which not many shops has, so that they can keep an eye on that. So as soon as someone is approaching as soon as they walk on the forecourt, we tend to go there. So that's what I mean by I can go there by 3 seconds is I don't have to wait till someone comes to the door. CCTV in my storeroom will clearly show me that someone is walking in my forecourt and then I start towards the till. So that's the regular practice, Chair.
If I may, Chair, I asked the question, who do you rely upon to let you back in? The other part, which I actually asked, was how many doors, because I didn't count the number of doors on the video which you showed, but you seem to go through quite a number of doors.
But there's only,
And just, if I may, and I didn't actually locate where the car was from the video which you showed. So there was a variety of corridors and doors, and there was caged areas, because I don't understand the configuration is. So when you say that it takes you only 5 seconds to get back in, that might well be the case from the storeroom, but
Yes.
you were actually outside of the premises.
So the
So how
storeroom
many
is
doors do you have to pass through, as per your video,
So,
to get back to the shop floor?
okay. So I think you have mistaken. If I'm wrong, correct me. So I don't have to go through that way all the time. I just have to come through the shop. The case is the staff only area, the stickers, the brown door is always kept open. So when we are in the filling, of course, I need to go in and out, the door is open. And then the other door is the fire exit door. So normally, when there is one person in the store, we don't really step outside the fire door. We only stay in the entrance. Because I was having a conversation with someone, which is really important because he came back to me asking for his documents that he kept in his car, which I wasn't aware until that day. So I wasn't expecting my car to be stolen in April, Chair. I didn't know this is going to happen to me. My house was broken into, and then they took everything that I had in my life for the last 20 years of earning. Everything was gone. I didn't know this is going to happen to me. Even in that situation, I kept up my licensing obligations because I wanted to be a lawful person. And then nobody found what happened to that one. And then I was going through hell, and this person D came to me and asked, like, I left my passport in your chair. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I said, like, look, then you have to take like a white passport or a temporary passport because I was having a serious conversation.
I feel we are drifting a little from the original question. I would also remind the panel that this is the applicant's opportunity to ask questions of the premises. So with that in mind, do you have further questions?
Chair, thank you for the opportunity. We have no more questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. So, are there any further questions of the premises from those present? Then I think we can move to sum up with the party who spoke last to go first. It would be the premises, Mr. Bain. Yes.
I confess I always find this a little odd. You have 2 consecutive goes, but anyway, that's the way you do it. I refer you to my skeleton argument, and I'm also grateful to Councillor Flyer for asking the questions. What's the relevance of the dog? Correct. What is the relevance of the dog? It's not a dog, it's a red herring. The same applies to the nitrous oxide canisters, and dare I say it, to the various suggestions, hints, whatever, made with regard to breaches of licensing conditions. You do not need to have Challenge 21 stickers on every can of beer or whatever. That's not the way in which it works. You do not need to have multiple copies of your license summary on display. The legal requirement is to have one. It doesn't even specify where it has to be, as long as it can be seen. And as you know, Mrs. Rogers got him to move it, full cooperation. The only the only relevance here is this allegation of an illegal worker. And where we end up with there is proportionality. That's, dare I suggest, after however long we've been here now, 2-3 hours, that's the only issue. What is it proportionate for you to do in this case? Is the ultimate sanction of revocation proportionate? And I would say, no, it isn't. It's too harsh. It's too punitive. Suspension of the license, well, what would that achieve? Because normally one suspends the license if there's been problems and you feel it appropriate to give the holder of the license or whatever an opportunity to sort them out. Go away, put your house in order, get your CCTV working, get your records kept, do all the staff training, do all of that, and we'll suspend the license whilst you do all of that, and then you can have it back with new conditions. That's just not appropriate in this case. Remove him as DPS. It's a family business. It's him and his wife. What good would that achieve? I don't think that it would. You're here to uphold the licensing objectives. There is a suggestion, in fact, it's more than a suggestion, strong hint that when you get these cases, you need to send a message out to the wider community. Well, I think the message to the wider community is you risk a £40,000 fine, you risk losing your lottery terminal, a big chunk out of your income because there is less reason for people to come into your shop and so on and so forth. So I go back to where I was with my earlier submission, that in my respectful view, the appropriate course of action here is to amend the licence as I suggested, but to take no further action other than to make it very, very clear that you do not wish to see this relatively young man back before you ever again. And I can say with as much confidence as I ever have had that you won't see him again, not unless he's coming for a brand new licence in another shop or something like that. That is, if I say anything more, I'll be repeating myself. There's a lot of paperwork, you will have read it and so on and so forth. A lot of it, frankly, is irrelevant to the issue that you now need to decide.
Thank you, Mr. Day. I will move to the applicant to sum up their position.
Thank you, Chair. I will also try not to reduce what's already been said and just try and highlight to you as well some of the some of our observations around your options today. You have been asked to consider all of the available options, but before I do take you through them, the one thing I need to remind you of is that fiscal matters or matters of fiscal nature are outside of, they're not for you to consider. What you need to consider is that how confident can you be that the licence holder will promote the licensing objectives and be compliant with the conditions of their licence. I'm not going to go over that again. We've done that, like you said, for the last couple of hours, but I will take you through the available options. And I'll start with the option that's recommended by Mr. Day, and he makes that recommendation based on proportionality. You've seen the statement from the immigration officers and the interviews that have taken place, and they are crystal clear that there has been working by an individual with no right to work. It's not for you to ascertain the guilt. However, like I said, it's for you to determine whether or not the licensing objectives have been promoted, and they have not on this occasion. We don't believe that doing nothing would, as Mr. Day, would be something that you would promote, because doing nothing in something that is serious would not be the right thing to do, and it would be departing from the guidance, the statement of licensing policy, and the other document as well that we have highlighted is the recently published Preventing Illegal Working in Licensed Premises and the Home Office Role as a Responsible Authority in England and Wales document that I will allow you to review yourselves. Mr. Day talked about whether or not a suspension would make any difference, and we share that view. It wouldn't be useful in the sense that what has been uncovered here, we can't tell you the history of this alleged illegal working. We can't tell you that. What we can do is tell you what the illegal workers found, and a suspension would not go in any way whatsoever to address those concerns. The excluding of licensable activities, as Mr. Day has already said, would effectively amount to the revocation of the licence, as that is the only licensable activity. And the removal of the DPS, and I know that that is something I think that was highlighted earlier as a possible option, if my memory serves me right, but Mr. Day has now said that it isn't really a viable option. The licence holder is in fact the DPS, I understand, and essentially you don't have the power to remove the licence holder. So the premises would remain under the control of Mr. Murali Mohan and his family. There is the option to add or modify conditions. I would add that we haven't approved, I think the word approved earlier was used, but we do welcome, and not just in this case, but in any case, if anybody wants to offer conditions that are an improvement on what they have, it helps to support, and we always try and word it that way. It helps to support people, but that's not what we're here for today. The conditions that have been offered relate to Challenge 25, CCTV and staff training and such like. But we are here, and I say I'll remind you what I said earlier. We need to factor in that the focus needs to be on this immigration issue. So that brings us then to revocation of the licence. It is the last resort, but it isn't a punishment. It isn't a punishment. It is one of the options available to you. It's not intended to be punitive. It reflects the severity of the issue that's being brought before you. There's mention of the loss of the lottery terminal. That's separate. That's a failure to meet the requirements of the licence to have the lottery. You don't need to bring that in. That is separate. We highlighted it to you for the purposes of providing context. But revocation should be a last resort for you. However, the guidance, and I'm not going to go through it because you have it before you in our supplementary, that details why this option is appropriate in these circumstances, even in the first instance. So you do have Section 182 guidance, the guidance that relatively new guidance that I pointed out to you just now, the Licensing Act around what amounts to relevant offences, and the fact that immigration is included within that, and you have the BCP Statement of Licensing Policy as well. If the licence is revoked, then the business can continue to operate as a convenience store. It can do. Additionally, there are other stores nearby, a lot of which have already been highlighted, I think, by Mr. Day earlier today. You've got the Co-op within 300 yards, Smith's News less than 100 yards. And I'll finish by just saying that great efforts have been made to imply that the paperwork submitted by the immigration officers has been dishonest, fabricated, whatever, and that for me is an absolute sign of desperation in this instance. It is clear that the series of actions that take place following a situation like this are severe. When I first found out the level of the penalty issued by the Home Office, I was absolutely alarmed. I really was. But again, it demonstrates the severity and the fact that the government take this very seriously. And I'll finish by saying that Dorset Police are grateful for the continued support of our partners in the immigration team. They're acting alongside us to stop the damage that results from employing illegal workers, which we've highlighted both exploits their vulnerability and also causes residual damage to the business community. Dorset Police believe that revocation, having considered all the other options available, is the only appropriate outcome in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move to the licensing officer to sum up. Do you not?
No.
Which you don't have to do. There we go. In that case, yeah, I would like to thank everybody for their input and energy today. This has been a long session. I am satisfied that everybody has been able to present their position to the greatest extent possible. And I think that is really important here, given that people's livelihoods are potentially in the frame. So we will conclude the hearing at this point and then move to deliberations. We will deliberate in private with our legal advisor and clerk present, and notification of the decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all... sorry, no, we've done that bit. I believe I will now conclude the hearing and end the live stream.